Quiero enviar un saludo fraterno a Europe for the People y al Partido de la Izquierda Europea y aprovechar este evento que habéis organizado para destacar la importancia de tener una izquierda fuerte frente al avance reaccionario, frente a las políticas neoliberales. Una izquierda que tiene la tarea de defender, por supuesto, los derechos de la clase trabajadora y una izquierda que debe defender también los derechos humanos y que debe defender con especial empeño los servicios públicos, que son la manera de articular el Estado social y de garantizar derechos para todos y para todas. Mucha suerte.
We live at a time when Europe is being shaken by contradictions and conflicts, but also by mass popular mobilizations of farmers, workers, students, women against the far right. This in an European Union of increasing inequalities within and between its member states. At a time when price hikes are curbing the living standards of people across the continent, the European Union institutions are set to bring back policies imposing brutal austerity and draconian controls over governments. This confirms that the peoples and societies of Europe are confronted with different but also common problems. Problems that are rooted in both the character and the policies implemented by the European Union. This also confirms the relevance of our vision and proposal of the different Europe that we want and work for, that we link with our struggles today for people's needs in life, work, social insurance, education and health. A Europe with dignified wages and pensions, stable and full-time jobs, and the extension of collective agreements. For public investments that will ensure dignified housing for all. For modern social policies and infrastructures for working parents, for energy affordable for every household. There are solutions, and there is certainly enough money. Money should be taken from the windfall profits of banks and energy companies, from the war machine, and allot to social needs. This is what my party AKEL and the entire left in Europe are fighting and working for. In this battle, we need to unite and determined so as to pave the way for a reversal of the balance of forces and for greater changes, with optimism and confidence, with proposals and positions. The left knows how to fight and win battles.
In the recent years, the word peace has been removed from the European political vocabulary. As a Sinistra Italiana, we think instead that this is a fundamental value and should be at the heart of the European Union. Peace is always a difficult path. This is not about the wrongs or the reason of each one, but about the continuous search for solutions. We have the duty to respond to Putin's terrible aggression, supporting people affected by the war. But in these years, we have been given fuel to this war instead of finding ways out of it. We have replaced the word peace with the word victory, renouncing to any diplomatic attempt. Then we have removed peace by failing stop Israel in its massacre of people in Gaza, by remaining still weak and still, without defending the Palestinian rights to live. We are constantly arming ourselves in a mad rush that will make ourselves and the world even more insecure. As a Sinistra Italiana, we imagine and we work for an autonomous Europe in a multilateral context, a presidium in defense of human rights, a place of peace. The Italian Constitution repudiates war, and on this same categorical refusal, we must build a different role for Europe in the world.
In order to tackle the inflation of greed and the explosion of the cost of living that deprives the social majority of access to basic goods and services, we need national governments and European authorities determined to block the profiteering policies and tax the energy, fuel and food oligopolies. authorities willing to boost the purchasing power of lower and middle classes by drastic increases of wages, pensions and incomes. Syriza Progressive Alliance has proposed 7 immediate measures in this direction. First, the introduction of a maximum profit margin of 5% in the wholesale electricity market and introduction of a profit cap in retail per megawatt hour on an annual basis. Second, a ceiling on the profit margin from refining and trade of fuel on a permanent basis on the average of all EU member states. The reduction for at least 1 year of the consumption tax on fuel to the lowest rate in the EU. A full refund of consumption tax to farmers and the introduction of a reduced VAT rate of 6% from 24% currently in force. Third, for food and industrial goods, the imposition of profit caps throughout the supply chain and the establishment of intensive daily controls. A profit cap on importers, domestic industrial producers and retail warehouses. The inclusion of personal hygiene products for adults and baby care products in the super-reduced VAT rate of 6% from respectively 13% and 24% today. The reduction of the VAT rate to the EU average, to 21%, 11% and 5% respectively for the other categories of goods, as well as to 6% for water supply from 13% today. Fourth, the immediate establishment of a European Consumer Price Observatory, with weekly reports of comparative product prices for all categories of goods that are related to decent human living. Fifth, the immediate reduction of the cost of the monthly public transport card from 27 euros to 9 euros. Sixth, the establishment of transnational contracts and a cap to selling prices for the supply of critical materials and animal feed to our farmers. And seventh, the creation of a 5-year blacklist, an exclusion from state tenders for those businesses that speculate or operate in circumvention of competition. This is our set of proposals for a drastic reduction of the cost of living, production and consumption of the social majority. At the same time, these are priorities immediately connected to our common fight for a different European Union that will respect and protect the fundamental rights of its citizens to a decent life.
Hi everyone, I'm Jiri Mäntysalö, I'm Vice Chairperson of Communist Party of Finland, and I just wanted to say a few words about austerity policies and cost of living. The rising cost of living is of course a very concrete thing with negative impacts for many of us and for many people around the world and in Europe. And those austerity measures and neoliberal measures implemented by right-wing forces in Europe are targeted against people that have already suffered enough with many crises and with insufficient incomes, and they don't get the services that they need, and they have many big problems with their everyday life. And those austerity policies are trying to control people and also divide people and increase the gaps between people when it comes to well-being and wealth. And in Finland we have government formed by right-wing and far-right forces, and it has started its fight against people whose situation is already very bad. And also it has started to fight against trade union movements. And we in Communist Party of Finland have been protesting against this right-wing government, and we have been involved and active with many protests and demonstrations, and also debating and being active in cooperation between different forces that are fighting against these austerity neoliberal policies and government. And also we are campaigning and doing active work to reveal the lies of government and to talk people about the alternatives for society and system change.
My name is Markéta Jusitsová, and I am the chairperson of LEVICA, Czech Republic. Let me first say that I am especially proud that our party is able to take part in the upcoming elections as a part of the European left. International solidarity and cooperation is key in tackling the numerous challenges that Europe is facing. Today, I want to talk about a topic that is unfortunately familiar to all of us. Cost of living is significantly rising in all of the countries of Europe, and together with austerity measures of neoliberal right-wing governments, it's a deadly combination for the working class. In Czech Republic, thousands of people are on the edge of poverty. The average price of a rental apartment is 39% of the average wage. But as we all know, most of the workers' wages are not even close to the average. This means that we, as the working people, have to take on second and third jobs just to be able to survive and feed our families. Workers, and especially migrant workers' rights, are heavily abused. Workers in Czech Republic are getting paid only 67% of the value they actually create. This makes them the most exploited workers in Europe. The government is cutting unemployment benefits and pensions and disguise it as a motivation to go to work. But since the real wages are getting lower and lower, what kind of motivation is that? With the current leadership of the EU, which is neoliberal as well, there is almost no chance of improving the working and living conditions in the member states. We as European left need to act and fight for European minimum wage, for strengthening the position of trade unions, and for creating labor laws which protect the workers and not the companies. We need to do it on the European level. We need to do it together, and now.
The recent reform of the economic governance framework has made one thing clear: austerity is back. And under the guise of fiscal prudence, it risks to exacerbate inequalities and stifle essential investments in climate action and social welfare. The short-sighted approach to politics by liberal governments has become increasingly popular, and even Luxembourg, one of the richest countries in the EU, has made its return to austerity-driven policies. Right now, we are at a pivotal moment, facing multiple crises that demand decisive action. And it is clear that we cannot tackle these challenges with the current system. And to get out of these crises, we need to rethink how we see the government, away from the image of a stock company with a CEO, investors and shareholders, but instead return to its original purpose, as a community where individuals work together for the collective good. As D-Link, we stand for an eco-socialist vision of the future, in which people and nature are again placed at the center of economic action.
Many people in Europe are concerned about the rise of far-right parties, and so are we, the European left. 3 principles apply in fighting the far-right. First, there must not be any compromise with hate speech, anti-migration discourse, racism, anti-Muslim racism, anti-Semitism, and misogyny. Whoever believed that he or she could fight the far right by integrating their discourse in their own agenda has failed, dramatically failed. That's why the recently between the European Council and the European Parliament concluded so-called migration pact is such a disgrace. Second, the core of fighting the far right is the social question. People want to be respected, and respect means the right to decently paid, fairly paid, secure jobs, affordable housing, the security of being able to pay the energy bill throughout the winter, accessible public services, healthcare, education, elderly care, pensions, public transport for everybody who is in need. Giving social security is the most important instrument in fighting the far right. And third, fighting the far right requires broadest possible alliances. The left is willing to make alliances with all forces available, with political parties, progressive parties, liberal parties, even churches. However, in order to be able to create broad alliances, the left must be united. Unity is the precondition of effectively fighting the far right. I'm very sure that we can win this fight, that we will win this fight for defending democracy and human rights in Europe, for the rights of the European people.
Dear friends, dear comrades, we are just a few weeks away from a very important battle, the European elections of the 9th of June. The neoliberal direction of the EU has proved how dangerous it is for its people. Daily challenges are not answered, social and economic inequalities are widening, and this is fueling populist and extreme right forces across the continent. The left in Europe, as a force of peace, must continue to work for peace in our region, in our continent, while proposing common paths with all anti-war and peace initiatives and movements. We will not stop talking about the genocide in Palestine. In Greece, one of our first initiatives as a New Left parliamentary group was to ask the Hellenic Parliament to invite Mr. Mahmoud Abbas to address the plenary session as a symbolic gesture of friendship between the Greek and the Palestinian people. We will support and we will undertake all necessary initiatives to start a European and global peace movement. We demand a strong EU international intervention with sanctions on Israel, with the aim of preventing further humanitarian crisis and the immediate start of peace negotiations. We also demand EU initiatives for the end of war in Ukraine and the return to a negotiation course between Ukraine and Russia, with the ultimate goal, after the end of the war, for the creation of a new architecture of mutual security and cooperation in Europe. Dear comrades, I would like to salute the Europe for the People event and wish fruitful discussions for the unity that the left needs now more than ever in order to confront all our common struggles.
Dear comrades, it is my honor to send you warm greetings from Ljubljana to Brussels. Europe is at a crossroads. It is not the time for politically correct behavior. If we want to make a change, we need to name it for what it is. Europe is not embracing peace anymore. We are permitting and participating in wars. We are permitting genocidal killings of innocent people and children in Palestine. Europe and the international community has failed. Europe has become a subcontract of NATO, an alliance of death, who do not spare the lives of innocent children, our planet, and has appetite for the profit. Under the pretense of security, we are pushing citizens of Europe into a vicious circle of crisis. Immigrants, the victims of war, capitalism, and degraded environment, are scapegoats for social problems. This is unacceptable. I see and appreciate the efforts of all of you who are standing and acting on the left. I am convinced that only together, only in unity and joint forces, we can participate and we have the power to reshape the destiny of Europe, to end the nightmare and bring it back to its original dreams of Europe that stands as a beacon of peace, prosperity, and hope. Peace is our victory.
Dear comrades, every day people in Europe experience the crisis in their lives. Prices are rising, food becomes more expensive, rents for many unaffordable, but corporate profits are going through the roof and governments are investing huge sums in armaments instead of public infrastructure. The left wants everyone to benefit from the great wealth in Europe. Everyone should be able to make a good living from their work and be protected from poverty. And we want more money invested in good public infrastructure because good public services are important to keep people and society together. We therefore want to remove the priority for privatization and profit orientation from the EU treaties. We want to increase taxes on corporate profits and the wealth and inheritances of super-rich throughout the European Union. We fight for good public services with enough staff for sufficient affordable housing, for education and upbringing without fees, for public and non-profit organized health and care, for a Europe of social justice for the people. Thank you.